for joining our first virtual town hall, specifically focused on our small businesses and the needs that are arising during this very difficult time. There's so much going on and so much information that's out there, and it's hard to find it in one place. So this virtual town hall is one way we get information out to those who need it. I want to thank our panelists for joining today. We have Congresswoman Katherine Clark. We have Wendell Davis from the SBA region, who's the SBA Regional Administrator, Peter Kontakos, the SBA Deputy Director, and a lot of folks from the City of Cambridge and our team who've been working around the clock to figure out what we can do for our small businesses. So I want to thank them. I want to thank our team from the Small Business Associations, Michael Monestein, Theo Scadis from Cambridge Local First, and many of the others who are listening in who have been around the clock working with the small business owners who are going through this difficult time. And last but not least, I want to thank the Vice Mayor, Alanna Mallon, who is the chair of our Economic Development and University Relations Committee, who has been truly instrumental in making sure we're supporting our small businesses that create the very fabric of our community. We're a city that really prides ourselves on our diverse set of businesses, and we really don't want to lose that part of our identity. And we have to really, really work hard during this time to put our heads together and figure out how we can help. So I'm hopeful that during this conversation, we can answer your questions and provide resources and guidance on what relief is available on a local, state, and federal level. So thank you to everyone who's joining. Thank you to the Vice Mayor again, and I'll let you take it from here, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Siddiqui, and I just want to also say thank you to all of our panelists today, and thank you to the Mayor for introducing some of them. I also wanted to introduce the city staff that is going to be joining us today. We have from our Economic Development Division, Pardis Safari. We have from our Director of Assessing Department, Gail Willett, and I think that's it for now for our staff. We've got some people on reserve in case there are questions that come up that aren't able to be answered. As Mayor Siddiqui said, this virtual town hall is the first of a series that will be content-specific town halls that Cambridge will be having as we try to keep folks posted on what is going on here, and we'll let you know when those come up and will be scheduled. The city, state, and federal government is working so hard right now to meet those challenges presented by this unprecedented public health crisis, to try to flatten or bend that curve so we don't overwhelm the healthcare professionals and we try to save lives. But this response has had a devastating effect on our local economy and on the small local businesses that make up this amazing community. In the last 2 weeks, the small business and restaurant community has been so negatively affected by this public health crisis in ways that we cannot even begin to imagine. We are here today to hear what you need right now in this time of rapidly changing circumstances. We may not have all the answers that you have for today. Some legislation is pending, and the elected and government officials may not know the answers to those questions, but we're committed to answering them as soon as we're able. And we internally are talking about updating the city's website to include an FAQ page to include the answers that we can't give today. I want you all, the business owners in our community, to know that although the city's response so far has been primarily publicly focused on the health and safety of our residents, there have been countless meetings with city staff, local banks, and others on how best to respond to this vulnerable group. We all deeply understand that we need to be focused on supporting our main streets for the next several months so that when we're able to transition out of this crisis, and we will, that we will have a main street that we recognize and that the local small businesses that we know and love are there for us. At the federal level, it's been heartening to see a focus on main streets in the stimulus package, and I look forward to hearing from Representative Katherine Clark discussing how those will translate here in her district. With the news here in the Massachusetts that schools are likely to not open until early May, we are beginning to understand that we have many weeks left to go before we're out of this, and that supporting businesses during this time is imperative at the federal, state, and local level. That's why we're having this critical conversation today. Our economic development team has been working overtime to develop innovative partnerships and supports. We just launched the city's partnership with local restaurants to make meals for our homeless residents who are no longer being served by the groups and programs that were available to them before COVID hit. And other supports are underway. We're discussing how the Mayor's Disaster Relief Fund can help not just residents, but our small businesses too. In the past few days, there have been some exciting initiatives in the state and across the country to support small local businesses that here in Cambridge, we're studying to see if we can put similar models in place to help. A few are in Springfield, Massachusetts. Mayor Sarno announced yesterday a new grant program for restaurants called Prime the Pump, which is a $15,000 grant from Community Development Block Grants to restaurants who have shifted to a takeout model. New York City has announced an employee retention program to help retain employees as business face decrease revenue. The program is available to businesses with 1 to 4 employees that have had significant losses due to the COVID crisis. Eligible businesses will receive a grant covering 40% of their payroll for 2 months and up to $27,000. And lastly, in San Diego, California, they just announced a $4 million economic relief package for struggling local businesses affected financially by the coronavirus pandemic. San Diego will work with local financial institutions to establish a relief fund, which will support zero-interest microloans for affected businesses. That relief fund will be kickstarted by the money from the city's business revolving loan fund, and they expect that fund will grow from the initial $4 million. I look forward to these continued conversations within Cambridge on how the city and the community and residents can support our main streets during this very difficult time. So before we get started, there's a little housekeeping that we're going to do. All of the panelists that are here with us, you are all muted. But if you have a question for the panelists, please type it in the Q&A box, which is located at the very bottom of your Zoom screen, and I will ask panelists. This video is being recorded and broadcasted live on CCTV on Channel 9 and through their Facebook Live or their Facebook page as Facebook Live. We are also being broadcasted live on C-SPAN, and the video will be archived and available on CCTV's website. I have sent out questions to the panelists in advance that we've been asked over the last week, either on Twitter or email or via other means, and also through the last week's really great conversation that the Cambridge Local First group brought together. We are going to be hearing from our panelists. We're going to be hearing first from Congresswoman Clark, then the Small Business Administration representatives and our city staff, and then we're going to do a Q&A for the government group before moving on to the local business associations for a hyper-local update and questions and answer session. At this time, I'd love to turn it over to Representative Clark to give us a picture of the financial stimulus package that the Senate just passed and the House is likely to vote on soon, maybe as soon as tomorrow. So Representative Clark, love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Siddiqui and Vice Mayor Mallon. I really appreciate you organizing this and giving me a chance to participate with you. Thank you also to my fellow panelists for all your hard work to support Cambridge families and businesses in this very difficult time. And to the business owners on the call, you really are making the difference. And I'm glad we have this opportunity to talk about how the federal relief is specifically targeted at small and mid-sized businesses like yours, and how we can keep everyone employed and these businesses ready to reopen. As Vice Mayor Mallon said, we will reopen, but we want to make sure you have the resources to do it. So first, I'm just quickly going to go back on the first 2 packages that we passed to make sure that you have that information. 3 weeks ago, we passed an $8.3 billion package that was signed into law on March 6th. It committed $3 billion to expanding treatment and vaccines for COVID-19. It supported small businesses by $7 billion in low-interest SBA loans. It protected against price gouging of medicines that are going to be developed. And it put $2.2 billion into our public health infrastructure and protected public health by allowing Medicare providers to extend telemedicine services. Then we went back, and last week we passed the Familiesfirst Act, which was the House bill to support families and workers. We made testing for the coronavirus free to all, whether you have private insurance, public insurance, or no insurance at all. We put paid emergency leave in, ensuring that 87 million Americans would be able to have paid leave. And we enhanced the unemployment insurance, give states the resources and the flexibility to provide unemployment benefits to those laid off and furloughed workers. This measure also provided additional funding to help the hardest hit states immediately. And here in Massachusetts, just on Monday alone, we had 20,000 people file for unemployment in our state. We also put more than $1 billion into food security. As the Vice Mayor already highlighted, this is a real issue, especially for school children and families who count on those food programs delivered at our schools. When schools are closed, we needed to change our operations, make sure we're increasing SNAP benefits and other ways for children to get those nutritional needs met. I really want to thank Cambridge, who's done an outstanding job at delivering these additional benefits, not only to our school children, but to our seniors and other people who have a hard time accessing the grocery store. We also increased Medicaid. It was a 6.2% increase for states, an increase into the FMAP to help what we know are going to be increased roles of people who will become eligible for Medicaid and here in the Commonwealth for Mass Health. And now we are very close to the passage of the third bill. It did pass the Senate last night. We are very optimistic that we are going to be able to pass this by voice vote tomorrow, but we're not going to leave anything to risk. So I will be most likely getting in my car and driving to DC today to make sure that we have a quorum if we need it. It's an insurance policy I don't think we're going to need, but we want to make sure that we get this relief to Americans as quickly as possible. Sort of the highlight for small businesses in this package is the Paycheck Protection Program, and I can go into more detail with it, but it is $350 billion for loans up to $10 million that can cover salaries, paid leave, health insurance, retirement benefits, and operational costs. It's for employers who maintain their payroll. If you have the same amount of employees, or I believe 90% of that, in December of 20, the loan will be forgiven. The eligibility requirements are a small business with less than 500 employees, but it does include self-employed individuals, contractors, and what we think of as gig employees. This is very different than how our SBA program usually operates, and it's a big expansion that is going to really meet some needs for self-employed people. It also